Dear leaders, as you lead, manage also your human resources. Do you know the science that shapes a human being in his or her environment, in his or her consciousness, his or her intelligence, on the different planes of his or her existence or affairs? All that the human being must undertake to succeed? Mbote. Hi, I'm Rama, your mentor in leadership and organizational management. Today, I would like to share with you the most profound wisdom, the reference of references that find its source deep within our continent, deep within ourselves. I am talking about the Congo wisdom, Congo highest wisdom. I'm not talking about a nation, nor an ethnic group, nor a country, but about a state of being. The state, the Congo state, which I have already talked about in the first series of my podcast on the Bumuntu entitled On the Path to Bumuntu, episode 4. The ancients were able to grasp a fundamental principle, that of a balance that maintains, advances, and makes the living prosper in matter. A balance without which all the work done in the world could not prosper. Dear leaders, dear managers, dear officials, what is this balance? The world in which we live in is based on principles that have been handed down, given, structured by higher forces and channeled by our fathers' ancestors. Among these principles, there is that of a fundamental balance for everything that concerns the human being in matter. I'm speaking here about the principle of Makuku Matatu from the primordial Congo tradition. The ancient tells us that this principle is based on 3 pillars and is the foundation for the wisdom and the construction of all that makes the human being and all that the human being must undertake. Pillars without which the human being cannot carry out or even prosper fully and optimally. It is perhaps time to have an interest in this, to understand the stakes in which we live in, to go back to this ancestral wisdom, this primordial wisdom, which is the Makuku Matatu. So, the ancient tells us that Makuku Matatu is the essence of the Chakra, the power in 3. And the 3 pillars on which it is founded are Zinga, Nsaku, and Panzu. To make it easy to understand, let's take the example of a computer. Many will tell you that the elements that make up a computer are based on the logic of a machine divided into 2 parts. The hardware, which is external, and the software, which is internal. Nicely forgetting the electricity or energy part. The ancient tells us that in fact, the quantum energy side is just as important, because without it, it is mathematically impossible to make the machine work. And so the machine loses its meaning. The ancients tells us that it is this balance between the 3 parts, not 2, that makes the machine. The physical hardware runs the program defined by the software, whose role is to facilitate and sustain the life of the computer. The software in turn is activated by the energy that powers the entire system. Now back to the principle of Makuku Matatu. The ancients explain to us that Zinga is the software. Zinga is also represented by the head, the leader, the chief himself or herself, who operates from within the organization. The ancient tells us that Zinga is the field of mastery for everything that is of the inner universe. It is the fundamental basis for the management and the governance of a company or business. At the human level, it comes to the mastery of one's inner self for the balance of one's consciousness and or identity. The ancients tells us that otherwise it is impossible to lead, because to master oneself internally requires wisdom, the governance of one's own life, and so to know how to master the profound knowledge of the inner world. This is important. So after having mastered his or her consciousness and or identity, in Zinga, the software, the human being or the leader must access the multidimensional plane, Saku. It is the energy that must feed the system, so he must access the spiritual knowledge of the living through a multidimensional intelligence. In Saku, it is a matter of having the mystical, esoteric, spiritual base that powers the human being into an initiate. Because the person who is not initiated, a leader who is not initiated, cannot have a balanced life nor a balanced organization. It is this Nsaku that feeds the energy to Zinga, the software. And after having mastered his or her spiritual life, the human being or leader must access the mastery of all that is of the external universe. We're here in the Panzu field, representing the environment in which the human being or leader incarnates, where he or she evolves. And in the context of an organization, it is where we find clients, markets, investors, communities that we serve, etc. In Panzu, it is about the physical world. Here, the human being must have the fundamental mastery of the earth plane. Everything that is found in the plane of science, technology, quantum physics, mechanics, molecular, biology, business, money, finance, matter, etc. On the Panzu plane, the leader conducts the various branches and departments of the organization to make it move forward. So, Nzinga, Nsaku, and Panzu, the Makuku Matatu, a fundamental principle, that of a balance without which, say the ancients, all the work done around the world cannot prosper. In the next video, I will discuss the implication of this fundamental principle on human management and organizational leadership. I'm Rama, your mentor in leadership and organizational management, speaking to you from the land of our ancestors, all the way in Senegal. Listen to the voice of Africa. Jërëjëf, Matondo, and see you next time. Zola.